The CEO fired me via Zoom to save money, unaware that the obsolete server in my home office was the only backup of the company's financial history. My name is Arthur Pensington. I'm 54 years old, and I spent the last 22 years as Chief Data Archivist at Apex Corp. 22 years of making sure nothing got lost. Nothing got corrupted. Nothing disappeared into the digital void that swallows companies whole when they're not paying attention. I served 12 years in the Navy before that. Communications specialist. The kind of work where a single misplaced file could compromise an entire operation. Where redundancy wasn't a suggestion. It was religion. That's what I brought to Apex when Marcus Whitfield hired me back in 2003. The company was small then. 40 employees, 3 filing cabinets, 1 server that hummed in a converted supply closet. Marcus had a philosophy. Data is memory, he used to say. A company without memory is a company waiting to die. I believe that, still do. Over 2 decades, I watched Apex grow from that cramped office into a mid-sized financial services firm. 200 employees, 3 floors, clients across 18 states, and through all of it, I kept the records safe. Every transaction, every contract, every piece of correspondence, backed up, verified, protected. The server room smelled like old coffee and ozone. The fluorescent lights buzzed at a frequency only I seemed to notice. I spent more hours in that room than I did in my own home. My wife Eleanor passed 7 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Took her in 4 months. I missed 3 days of work. Marcus told me to take more. I told him the servers needed monitoring. Truth was, I needed something to monitor. My son Daniel was 15 then. He's 22 now. Lives in Portland. Works in tech. Calls me every Sunday. Asks if I'm eating enough. I tell him I'm fine. The servers kept me company. They hummed. They processed. They didn't ask questions about why I was still at the office at 11 on a Saturday night. If you've ever had a boss or been in a situation like this, hit that like button and subscribe. Marcus retired 18 months ago, handed the company to his daughter, Catherine. She meant well, had good instincts, but she made one mistake. She hired Trent Davenport as CFO. Trent was 29 years old, Northwestern, MBA. The kind of degree that costs more than my house and teaches you everything except how things actually work. He arrived in January with a MacBook Pro, a vocabulary full of words like optimization and digital transformation, and a mandate to cut costs by 30%. First thing he did was tour the facilities. I watched him walk through the server room with Catherine. He didn't ask questions. He took photos. He made notes on his tablet. How much are we spending on this infrastructure annually? He asked. I told him, $340,000, hardware, maintenance, redundant systems, climate control, security protocols. He actually winced. That's a lot of overhead for what's essentially a filing cabinet, he said. I explained that it wasn't a filing cabinet. It was the institutional memory of a company with $180 million in annual revenue. 22 years of financial records, client data, compliance documentation, the kind of information that regulators require you to produce within 48 hours of a request. He nodded like he was listening. He wasn't. We're moving to the cloud, he said, streamlining. The future isn't in physical infrastructure, it's in scalable solutions. I'd heard this before. Every 5 years, someone new decided that the old way was obsolete. They'd push for migration. I'd walk them through the risks, the cost of data loss, the compliance requirements, the value of redundancy. They'd listen. They'd back off. Trent didn't back off. 6 months ago, he initiated the cloud migration, hired an outside firm, DevCore Solutions. 20-something contractors who talked fast and promised faster. I watched them work, asked questions they couldn't answer, raised concerns that got documented in emails no one read. The migration failed. Not dramatically. Not in a way anyone noticed. The transfer protocols corrupted somewhere around month 3. Data packets got scrambled. Timestamps misaligned. The cloud backup that was supposed to replace my servers was essentially a digital junkyard. I reported this to Trent directly. Sent a detailed technical assessment. 18 pages, charts, error logs, recommendations. He responded with 4 words. We'll circle back later. They never circled back. So I did what I've always done. I protected the company from itself. I set up a private server in my home office. Nothing fancy. Reliable hardware. Military-grade encryption. The same redundancy protocols I'd been running for 2 decades. Every night at 2 a.m., the system mirrored Apex's entire financial database to my basement. Automatic. Silent. Complete. I wasn't stealing anything. I was making sure it still existed. For 6 months, I kept the company's memory alive while the executives congratulated themselves on their digital transformation. While Trent presented cost-saving projections to the board. While the DevCore contractors collected their fees and moved on to the next client. The cloud backup was a ghost. A shell. A folder full of corrupted files that no one had bothered to verify. My server was the only copy. Last Tuesday, Trent scheduled a Zoom call for 4:15 p.m. The calendar invite said, Quick Sync, Budget Review. I knew what it was. He appeared on screen from what looked like his apartment. Exposed brick, designer furniture, a bookshelf arranged to be visible behind him. I could see the spines. None of them had been opened. Arthur, thanks for jumping on, he said. He didn't make eye contact with the camera. He was looking at something else, probably his notes. I'll cut right to it. We're restructuring the data management division. I'm the data management division, I said. Right. He smiled. The kind of smile that's rehearsed. And we appreciate everything you've contributed. But with the cloud migration complete, we're finding that the role has become somewhat redundant. Redundant. 22 years of keeping this company's memory intact. And he called me redundant. We're eliminating the position effective immediately, he continued. HR will send over the severance details. Standard package. 4 weeks. Cobra information. The usual. I sat there, looked at his face on the screen, thought about the server humming 3 feet behind me, thought about the 847 terabytes of financial history that existed nowhere else on Earth. I understand, I said. He paused, waited for something. Argument, anger, pleading. He got silence. Great, he said. We'll need your credentials deactivated by end of day. IT will handle the transition. Of course. Any questions? I had one, but I didn't ask it. Instead, I said, good luck with the cloud. He nodded like I'd wished him well on a vacation. The call ended at 4:23 p.m. I closed my laptop, walked to my kitchen, poured 3 fingers of bourbon, the good stuff, the bottle Eleanor gave me for our 20th anniversary. I sat at the table and watched the sun set through the window. The server hummed in the next room. I took a sip, waited. If you've ever had a boss who thought they could replace decades of experience with a subscription service, hit that like button and subscribe. The ransomware hit Apex Corp at 6:47 a.m. the following Wednesday. I know the exact time because that's when my phone started buzzing. Not with calls, not yet. With news alerts. Financial sector cybersecurity breach. Major firm compromised. Investigation ongoing. I made coffee. Black. From the old percolator Eleanor bought at a garage sale in 2008. The one Daniel keeps telling me to replace with something modern. I don't replace things that work. By 7:30 a.m., the alerts were naming Apex directly. By 8:15, the stock had dropped 11%. By 9, my former colleagues were texting me. People I hadn't heard from in months. Years. Arthur, what's happening? Is this as bad as it sounds? Do you know anything? I didn't respond. I sat on my back porch with Rex, my 9-year-old Labrador. He knows when something has shifted. He pressed his head against my knee and stayed there. The ransomware was a variant called Black Mirror. Sophisticated. Russian origin, most likely. It encrypted everything. Every server. Every workstation. Every cloud-connected device, including the backup. The beautiful, expensive, thoroughly corrupted cloud backup that Trent had staked his reputation on. My phone buzzed again. Different tone this time. Actual call. Number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. The voicemail was from Catherine Whitfield herself, Marcus's daughter, the CEO who'd signed off on my termination without ever looking me in the eye. Arthur, this is Catherine. I know this is unexpected, but we're experiencing a significant technical situation, and I was hoping you might have some institutional knowledge that could help us. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. Institutional knowledge. That's what they needed now. I deleted the voicemail. The next 3 days were fascinating to watch from the outside. Day 1. Trent held an emergency all-hands meeting. I heard about it from Margaret Wilson, who'd worked in accounting for 15 years. She texted me a summary. He kept saying contained and manageable. Nobody believes him. The ransom demand came in at 2:15 p.m., $4 million in Bitcoin. 72-hour deadline. After that, the attackers would start releasing client financial data to the public. Day 2. Apex's legal team contacted the FBI. DevCore Solutions, the contractors who'd botched the migration, went radio silent. Their offices were empty by noon. Trent held another meeting. This one was shorter. He looked like he hadn't slept, Margaret texted. His hands were shaking when he held the microphone. The IT team discovered the cloud backup was worthless around 4 p.m. I know because my phone exploded with calls. Former colleagues. Former subordinates. People who'd watched me get fired on a Tuesday and were now realizing what they'd lost. I let every call go to voicemail. Day 3. The board held an emergency session. 12 hours. Behind closed doors. The stock had dropped 31%. 3 major clients had already begun transferring their accounts to competitors. I drove to the hardware store, bought mulch for the garden Eleanor had planted, spent the afternoon spreading it around the rose bushes while my phone vibrated in my pocket. 23 missed calls by sunset. I made dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup, the meal Daniel used to request every time he was homesick from school. I ate slowly, watched the news. The Apex situation was the lead story on 2 financial channels. Sources inside the company indicate that critical financial records may be permanently lost, the anchor said. Regulatory agencies are already preparing inquiries into the firm's data management practices. I turned off the television. The call from Trent came at 9:47 p.m. on day 3. I recognized the number this time. His personal cell. He'd given it to department heads during his first week. Open door policy, he'd called it. Accessibility. I'd never used it. The phone buzzed 12 times before going to voicemail. Then it buzzed again. And again. On the 4th call, I answered. Arthur. His voice was different. The rehearsed confidence was gone. What remained sounded like a man standing at the edge of a cliff. Arthur, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for... I know. Silence. We have a situation, he said. I've seen the news. The backup failed. The cloud migration, There were issues we weren't aware of. The data is corrupted. All of it. I documented those issues, I said. 18 pages. 6 months ago. More silence. I could hear him breathing. Fast. Shallow. We need the historical records, Arthur. Everything from the past 22 years. Compliance is demanding documentation by Friday. The SEC is involved. If we can't produce the files, I understand the regulatory requirements, I said. I wrote most of the compliance protocols. Then you know how serious this is. We're talking about the survival of the company. 200 jobs. Client relationships going back decades. I didn't respond. Arthur, I know things ended badly. I know the termination was... I should have handled it differently. But this is bigger than us. This is bigger than whatever happened between... Nothing happened between us, Trent. You made a business decision. You eliminated redundancy. I was wrong. The words hung there. I let them hang. The backup you terminated, I said slowly. The one you called obsolete. The physical infrastructure that was too expensive to maintain. Yes. I kept a copy. I heard something on the other end. Might have been relief. Might have been a sob. Hard to tell. You have it? You have the data? 847 terabytes. Every transaction. Every contract. Every piece of correspondence. Backed up nightly. Verified daily. Military-grade encryption. Arthur, that's incredible. We need to get access immediately. I can have IT at your house within the hour. Whatever you need. Name it. I took a sip of bourbon. Let the silence stretch. Arthur? The backup service is a subscription model, I said. The price is $10,000 a month. Nothing. I don't... What? $10,000 monthly. Full administrative access to verified historical data. Compliance-ready documentation. Regulatory filing support. The institutional memory you decided was redundant. You're serious. The Navy taught me to always have a contingency, Trent. 22 years at Apex taught me to always get it in writing. I had my attorney draw up the contract last week. Standard consulting terms. 12-month minimum commitment. Payments in advance. That's extortion. It's a business service. You're free to decline. The SEC deadline is Friday. I'm sure DevCore Solutions can help you recover those corrupted files. I heard voices in the background. Catherine. Someone from legal. Trent's hand must have been over the microphone because the words were muffled. Arthur, be reasonable. We're talking about people's livelihoods here. We were talking about mine 8 days ago. You used the word redundant. That was a mistake. I've admitted that. Then correct it. Accept the terms. Or don't. The voices in the background got louder, more urgent. I could hear Catherine now, clearly. Give me the phone. Give me the damn phone, Trent. Arthur, this is Catherine Whitfield. My father always spoke highly of you. He said you were the most reliable person he ever employed. Your father understood the value of institutional memory. I understand it now, too. Whatever Trent offered you, we can discuss. Come into the office tomorrow. We'll sit down, work this out properly. The terms are non-negotiable. $10,000 monthly. 12-month commitment. Payment in advance. Your legal team can review the contract tonight. I'll need a signed copy by noon tomorrow, or I'll assume you found an alternative solution. Arthur, thank you for calling, Catherine. I hope the board meeting goes well. I hung up. Rex looked at me from his bed in the corner. His tail thumped once against the cushion. I know, I said, but some lessons need to be expensive. I finished my bourbon, rinsed the glass, walked upstairs. The server hummed in my office. 847 terabytes of memory. 22 years of a company's history. The only copy that existed anywhere on Earth. I turned off the light and went to bed. My phone started buzzing again at 11:34 p.m. I put it on silent. The signed contract arrived at 11:47 a.m. the next morning. My attorney, Frank Morrison, called to confirm. Frank and I served together on the USS Theodore Roosevelt. He went to law school afterward. Corporate contracts. The kind of work where precision matters and ambiguity kills. They accepted everything, he said. 12-month commitment. $120,000 wired in advance. Full consulting terms. They didn't even negotiate. They couldn't afford to. Arthur, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've never seen a Fortune 500 legal team roll over this fast. Whatever you have on that server, they need it bad. They need it by Friday. Frank laughed. The sound of a man who appreciated watching arrogance meet reality. One more thing, he said. Catherine Whitfield added a personal note to the signing documents, handwritten. Said she'd like to discuss an expanded role for you at Apex. Something about correcting past mistakes. Forward me the contract. I'll review it this afternoon. I spent the rest of the day in the garden. The roses Eleanor planted were coming in strong this year, deep red, the color she always loved. Rex followed me around the yard, sniffing at the fresh mulch, occasionally looking up to make sure I was still there. Daniel called during lunch. Dad, I saw the news about Apex. Are you okay? I'm fine. They fired you last week, and now they're all over the financial channels for a data breach. That's not a coincidence, is it? My son was always sharp. Got that from his mother. It's not a coincidence, I said. Are you involved? In fixing it, I mean? I'm consulting. Silence on his end. Then a laugh. Surprised. Genuine. You had a backup, didn't you? You always have a backup. The Navy taught me redundancy isn't optional. Dad. He paused. I'm proud of you, for what it's worth. It was worth more than he knew. The board meeting convened at 3 p.m. on Thursday. I wasn't invited. I didn't need to be. Margaret Wilson texted me updates throughout the afternoon. Trent just presented the recovery plan. He's taking credit for securing legacy data resources. Nobody's buying it. 20 minutes later, Catherine asked him directly about the cloud migration failure. He tried to blame DevCore. She has the emails where he overrode IT's concerns. An hour after that, they're calling for a vote on his termination. It's not looking good for him. I made dinner. Pork chops, mashed potatoes. The meal I used to make every Thursday when Daniel was growing up. Comfort food for the end of the week. The final text from Margaret came at 7:23 p.m. 8-0. Unanimous. Trent's out. Security walked him to his car 20 minutes ago. Same guard who used to work the server room. Jenkins. He looked like he enjoyed it. I read the message twice. Took a sip of bourbon. Scratched Rex behind the ears. Redundant, I said, to no one in particular. The next morning, I drove to Apex headquarters for the first time since my termination. The building looked the same. Glass and steel. 12 floors of financial services, infrastructure. I'd spent more hours inside those walls than anywhere else on Earth except my own home. The security desk recognized me immediately. Mr. Pensington. Jenkins stood up, smiled. Good to see you, sir. They're expecting you on 12. Thank you, William. The elevator ride was quiet. Familiar. I'd made this trip thousands of times. The same fluorescent lights. The same gentle hum of machinery. The same faint smell of recycled air and corporate ambition. The 12th floor was different. When the doors opened, Catherine Whitfield was waiting. Not in her office. Not in a conference room. Standing right there in the lobby, like she'd been watching the elevator numbers climb. Arthur. She extended her hand. Her grip was firm. Her eyes were tired. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the contract. She almost smiled. Let's talk in my father's office. My office now, I suppose, but it still feels like his. The corner office hadn't changed much since Marcus retired. Same mahogany desk, same leather chairs, same view of the city skyline. The only addition was a framed photograph on the credenza. Marcus and Catherine at her graduation. Harvard Business School, 20 years ago. She noticed me looking. He always said you were the backbone of this company, she said. I should have listened. People rarely do until the backbone breaks. Catherine sat behind the desk, gestured for me to take the chair across from her. The same chair I'd sat in hundreds of times over 2 decades, presenting reports, raising concerns, being told that everything was under control. The SEC inquiry has been resolved, she said. Your documentation was exactly what they needed. Complete. Verified. Time-stamped. Their lead investigator actually complimented our record keeping. Said it was the most comprehensive archive they'd seen from a firm our size. 22 years of institutional memory, which we almost erased. She leaned forward. Arthur, I want to offer you more than a consulting contract. I want to offer you a seat on the board. Chief Data Officer. Full executive authority over information infrastructure. Salary commensurate with the position. Stock options. Everything Trent should have offered you instead of a Zoom termination. I sat with that for a moment. Looked out at the skyline. Thought about Eleanor. About Daniel. About the server humming in my basement. I appreciate the offer, I said, but I'm not interested in the title. Catherine blinked. I don't understand. I spent 22 years building something in this company, protecting something. I did it because it mattered. Because your father understood that memory has value, that redundancy isn't waste, that the people who keep things running deserve respect, not optimization. I stood up, walked to the window. Trent saw my work as overhead. You saw my termination as acceptable. The board approved my elimination without a single question. It took a ransomware attack and an SEC investigation for anyone to notice what they'd lost. We made mistakes. You made calculations. I was a line item, redundant infrastructure. Now I'm essential again. Until the next MBA walks through the door with a mandate to cut costs. Catherine was quiet. The silence stretched. What do you want, Arthur? I turned back to face her. I want the consulting contract honored. 12 months. After that, I'll train a successor. Someone who understands that data isn't just files. It's memory. It's the foundation everything else is built on. Someone who won't get optimized away the next time a board gets nervous about overhead. And then I'm going to retire. Spend time with my son. Tend my wife's garden. Let someone else carry the weight. Catherine nodded slowly. You could have asked for more. You had leverage. I had enough. I picked up my coat from the chair. The company survives. The employees keep their jobs. The clients keep their data. That's worth more than whatever number would have made you wince. I walked toward the door. Stopped. Turned back one more time. Your father used to say that a company's memory is its soul. He was right. But memory isn't just data, Catherine. It's the people who protect it. The people who show up at 2 a.m. when the servers crash. The people who spend 22 years making sure nothing gets lost. I understand. I hope so. Because the next Arthur Pensington who walks through your door won't have a backup server in his basement. He'll just have a severance package and a lesson about what his expertise was worth. I left her sitting at her father's desk, looking at the city lights starting to come on in the evening sky. 3 months later, I got a call from Margaret Wilson. Arthur, you're not going to believe this. They named the new data center after you. The Pensington Archive. Plaques and everything. I laughed. Actually laughed. Tell them to make sure the backup systems are redundant. That evening, I sat on my back porch with Rex at my feet and 3 fingers of the good bourbon in my hand. Daniel was flying in for the weekend. First time in 6 months. He wanted to help me start work on the back deck Eleanor had always wanted to expand. The server in my office was still running, would be for another 9 months per contract. $10,000 a month to remember everything a company had tried to forget. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. Flight lands at 6. Can we get burgers at that place Mom used to love? I typed back, already made reservations. The sun was setting over the rose bushes. Red and gold light filtering through the leaves Eleanor had planted with her own hands, back when we thought we'd have decades more together. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. It hums quietly in a basement, waiting for someone to realize what they've lost. And sometimes the most valuable thing you can own isn't stock or equity or a corner office with a view. It's the memory of what matters and the wisdom to protect it. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and ring that notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.